It's the Kyle Hyman Show on Redeemer Radio.
This is Kyle Hyman, and joining us again to talk about how and why we should be involved in our parishes is our good friend, Kathy Fech.
Hi, thanks, Kyle.
Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. So, as someone who's worked in parish ministry for quite a number of years, it seems to me that our parishioners, who we all love, seem to fall into three distinct categories, if you will.
Okay.
And so for me, if I were going to kind of categorize my parishioners, I would look at them and lump them into one group who attends Mass, they give, they tithe of their time and their talent, and they're also involved. So you see them at parish events and other activities that are part of parish life. And so they're just the folks that are always around, always doing something, always there to lend a hand. Mm-hmm. Then you've got these folks who faithfully attend, and you see them on Sundays, and they're maybe dropping a tithing envelope in the basket, but that's about the only time you see them. Mm-hmm. And they'll, of course, pop up for other needs that they have occasionally, but you're not going to see them signing up to be a part of a lot of ministries and things like that for whatever reason. And then you've got this third group who, again, we equally love, we equally respect, and equally care for, but they tend to just show up when they need something. By that, I mean we definitely hear from them, but we hear from them when they need to put a child in religious ed or Catholic school. Mm-hmm. We hear from them when they have a wedding or funeral to plan, or it's time for a baptism. Mm-hmm. We may not see and hear from them other times beyond that. Right. We might not even see them very regularly, if at all, on Sundays. Mm-hmm. Perhaps maybe these are your Christmas and Easter type Catholics, if you'll let me use that overused phrase. Problem is, everybody has needs from a parish, broad needs. Yes, we need Mass on Sunday. Okay, we need the regular reception of the Holy Eucharist, but we also need all of the other things that are a part of parish life. Yes, we need the sacraments, but we need the community. We need the feeling of support and the sense of belonging that comes with being a part of a parish. And the less you come and the less you give of yourself, the more and more disconnected you're going to become. Mm-hmm. And sometimes this disconnect happens because of a reason. I've heard it happen with many people because they maybe had a difficulty with a priest or a parish staff member, or they went through something traumatic like a death or divorce or some kind of other trauma, and they feel the need to remove themselves because they just don't feel either connected or safe at their parish.
Or a crisis of faith.
Absolutely.
That has nothing to do with the parish, but
absolutely.
Ends up,
These things can all have an impact. We definitely understand these things, and we want to be sensitive to them. However, there's also a lot of families who are almost, if you'll let me use this term, apathetic about the faith.
Sure.
It's going to be there when I need it, so what does it matter if I'm there every Sunday or not?
Right.
They're always going to be there for me. Well, what happens is this apathy tends to beget apathy as the generations go on. Uh-huh. And so you've got these parents who maybe are coming to Mass 2 or 3 times a month, and they maybe have their kids in Catholic school or religious ed. And then over time, maybe the kids grow up and they get a little busier. Well, now all of a sudden you've got ball games and practices on Sundays, and so now all of a sudden you're going to Mass once a month. Mm-hmm. And you get more and more removed and more disconnected. Well, as that happens, you just feel like, well, the parish is still going. They don't need me. It's very clear they don't need me. And nothing could be further from the truth. And so I'm going to kind of paraphrase, I believe it's John F. Kennedy here. Ask not what your parish can do for you, ask what you can do for your parish, okay?
Right.
So, Kyle, we've talked before about the various precepts of the church on this show. The precepts is like the bare minimum. What if you're going to be like a Catholic who's just going to skate by?
Yeah.
What's the bare minimum you're asked to do?
Well, I feel like that's the question we're always asking. Like, what's the least I need to do?
Sadly,
what's the most I can get away with?
Most I can get away with, exactly. And we do that as Catholics.
Yeah.
So guess what? Part of the bare minimum as Catholics is providing for the needs of the church. Mm-hmm. That's one of the precepts of the 5 precepts of the church. So knowing that, what are you doing to provide for the needs of the church? Now, we know that some people financially just cannot give. We know that some people are bogged by, single parenting and working 2 jobs and barely having 5 free minutes for themselves. We're not talking about those folks because God knows your life circumstances. He knows what you can and can't give. But if you have the time, and maybe even a little bit of the money as well, are you giving what you can back to the church? Mm-hmm. Because that's how churches thrive, is through you, through your time and your talent. And yes, your treasure. We definitely need that to keep the parish running. But more importantly, what are you giving? Because at parishes, we often spend a lot of staff manpower doing things that could be done by volunteers.
Sure.
And so where are they? Where are they? Well, they can tend to get more and more disconnected. Well, what happens also then is we don't know their needs to reach out to these families. So in all the various parishes where I've worked, and I'm sure that any of my friends in parish ministry would agree with this, with the families who are involved, we know them. We know who they are. We know what they need. So we know when somebody is pregnant, and then we find out when they have a baby or when they miscarry. And we're able to reach out because we know they've suffered that loss. We know that so-and-so is going in for tests, and whether they're getting a serious diagnosis, maybe a terminal diagnosis, or got some wonderful health news. We have their current contact information, so we know where to find them. With so many of our parishioners, large percentages, we don't know these things.
Right.
Well, how can I reach out to you when you had a new baby and you're going through postpartum depression if I haven't seen you in a year and I didn't even know you were pregnant?
Right.
All of a sudden you show up with this new baby. I have no baseline for knowing how you're doing. And so it's very hard for me as someone who works at the church to know what your needs are when I don't see you very often. And guess what? We want to know what your needs are. We want to meet them. But we also want you to help meet ours too by giving what you can back to the church. So many times I have parents who say, or parishioners who say, well, I didn't know about that, or I didn't get the information. And then I find out, oh yeah, we moved 2 years ago. We don't have that phone number anymore. Oh, I never checked that email address. That's all understandable. We often change and update our information. You've got to let the parish know where you're at. How can we reach you?
Yeah.
And it's not so we can send you tithing envelopes. Yeah, we're probably going to do that too. But more importantly, we want to know where you are so we can tell you what's going on. So we can invite you to be a part of our community. We can invite you to worship with us. We can invite you to socialize with us. And we can invite you to work with us, to help us when we need assistance at events and things like that. And I think that's one of the best parts about parish life is you are needed there. And if you would just be present, we can show you how needed and necessary you are. The parishioners who are disconnected, never read the bulletin because they're not at Mass to pick one up maybe, or if they do go to Mass, they don't even grab one on the way out. They don't check the website, and so they're wondering why they missed this mandatory event they were supposed to be at. Well, we sent you a postcard on it, we sent you an email on it, we put it in the bulletin. But if we didn't have your correct address, we didn't have your correct email address, or you didn't check your email, and you didn't look at the parish website, and you never get a bulletin because you're never at Mass, there's only so much I can do.
Right.
We need you there so that we can build you into this community and make you feel a part of it. And I think so many of these people will say outright, well, I'm not there because there's nobody like me there. There's nobody that I feel comfortable with who knows my life, who has a similar job or family situation or lifestyle. Of course not, because if you're not there, they're just like you. They're not there either. And what we want to do is be setting that example and getting these people more and more integrated. Because back to this concept of apathy, no amount of catechesis, be it religious education or Catholic schooling, none of that is going to matter and keep your kids in the faith if they don't have some sense of belonging.
Right.
Kids who feel a sense of belonging in the parish, we can't guarantee they're not going to have, like you said, the crisis of faith or something that's going to pull them away at some point. But if they have a sense of belonging in that parish, it's really going to increase the likelihood of their desire to stay and to give. Now, my parents moved to Fort Wayne in 1991, and we joined St. Vincent's at that time. And my parents immediately got involved as extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion, Knights of Columbus, once that started there. Yes, I actually remember when at Fort Wayne, or when St. Vincent's did not have Knights of Columbus Council, getting involved in altar serving for us kids, helping in the nursery. Well, what's happened now is all these years later, my family still gives back to the church because they raised 3 kids who were shown and also involved in the church and shown how to give back. And so it's much more easy for us now as adults to jump in and to give and to say, yeah, we're happy to give back to the church and do our part. And so that's what I want for my families. And that's what every staff member wants for their families. And if you can show up and give your time at 2 events a year, that's something.
Yeah.
Maybe you have a crazy work schedule, but you know what? I can do 1 fish fry a year and I can work the parish festival. That's great. You're showing that you care about our community and that you want to be a part of it.
And if every parishioner would do that, that would be more than enough help.
We'd be bursting at the
Yeah.
seams.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Rather than begging people saying, can you please come in and do this with and for me?
Right.
Because as parish staff members, we want to be good stewards of the resources you provide us. So your tithing money is great, but do you really want us as parish staff members to spend all of our time doing things that a dozen volunteers could come in and get done in half an hour, but then we have to spend 5 or 6 hours doing ourselves because there just aren't the willing bodies.
Right.
And so the best thing you can do for your parish is to call and say, this is when I'm available. These are my skills. This is what I can do. This is what I have to give. And whether it is 5 minutes, 5 hours, or 5 days, whether it is something that you think is the most basic skill, like stuffing envelopes, or a more complex skill, like I'm a talented woodworker and can fix any of the falling apart pews in your church. I don't know what it might be.
Sure,
okay. Whatever your gift and talent or skills are, they're needed. And if you are a homebound person who's listening, guess what? We need you too, because we have prayer ministries that you can help with at our churches. We have things that maybe a staff member can drop off that mailing that you're going to prepare at home. And it might seem silly. It is so necessary. We need you. We want you to be part of the community. But most importantly, we want you to be part of the community so that we know what's going on in your life, so we can celebrate the wonderful blessings in your life when they come. We can mourn the losses, and we can be there for you when you need us. So don't just call us for funerals and weddings and catechesis. Be involved. And if you have those family members and friends who are on the margins who feel they don't belong, start bringing them. And if they're not comfortable coming to Mass for whatever reason, bring them to the parish potluck or the parish game night or whatever it might be that is social and casual and might feel a little more safe.
Yeah.
Get them to know the community. Help them build relationships. Because when they build that relationship at a Friday night potluck, they might be that much more called to say, gee, I want to see that person on Sunday. So I am going to go to that Mass that they go to. And I'm sitting in the pew. And now I'm going to have somebody to turn around with the sign of peace because I've made a connection
Yeah.
and I belong.
Yeah. How many people in the pews right next to us do we not know because we've never introduced ourselves? And now it's 10 years later and it seems awkward to say, hey, I've sat next to you.
We're
for
all
so
so bad about that,
Yeah.
aren't we? And it's very hard in parish ministry for me because I'm bad with names and faces,
Yeah.
confession time. And it is very hard for me to remember all of my students and their families. And so many parishioners know me, and I don't always know them.
Yeah.
And that is often an awkward situation. But that's another part of being president of the parish, because guess what? When your parish does photo directories, if you're regularly involved in the parish, you're going to come get your picture taken for that directory. And guess what? We as staff members, we rely on that a lot.
Sure.
Okay, that balding guy with the goatee and beard just shook my hand after Mass. Who is he? And I flipped through my directory until I landed on that phone. Oh, Kyle Hyman.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's his wife. All right, gotcha. Okay.
Right.
Trust me, it is immensely helpful when you're
definitely.
around. But when you're not at Mass, you didn't hear the announcement to go get your free photo taken.
Right. Right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Kathy. This has been very encouraging and challenging. I think no matter where we are in that spectrum of the three different things you said, there's always more that we can do.
There's
more
always-
ways that we can get involved. Or if you're maxed out as I'm involved too much or whatever, you can encourage somebody else to get involved. You can reach out to
Absolutely.
somebody else. You say, hey, would you mind helping me with this? I'm going to go in and
Exactly.
decorate the church for whatever. Would you come along with me? It's only going to take a half an hour.
You
if
nailed
we-
it.
would- You know, like to encourage others to get involved. And I think that is how it's in giving that we receive, right?
Amen.
By putting something in, we're going to get something out of it too.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Kathy.
Thanks, Kyle.